our guide, Trustee Craig Westergard. How long have you been doing this for?
Over 30 years.
Right, so fantastic. So,
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you at the end.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. This tour today is very interesting. All of this originated from years ago. Many of you may remember there used to be an annual house tour in Roslyn, and we started doing it again. It was dormant. We started doing it again. Then COVID hit, and then of course nobody wanted anybody in their house. And so last year, I've done them before, but last year we picked up and we started doing these walking tours. And we found that the walking tour is much more successful. Tom Powell here, I want to give him kudos because he runs the Cedarmere here, and he is the guy. You know, he's the Cedarmere guru. I always like coming to this mill building. You know, this is William Cullen Bryant's house. And if you don't know William Cullen Bryant, I'm not going to get into him, but he was a poet, journalist, and I think, wasn't he too a politician? Did he run?
Yeah, never ran.
He never did run?
Newspaper editor.
A newspaper editor. Influencer. Very good, thank you. Anyway, we're going to look at two mill buildings today. What I really want to focus on today, because we're in this part of the village, is not really the buildings of antiquity, but rather we're going to look at things that have been done within the last 30 years here in Roslyn, because a tremendous amount of stuff has happened. When I first started, the word was that Roslyn was a place and it hadn't changed in 150 years. In essence, it was exactly the same, pretty much the same. The biggest building in the community was the Roslyn Savings Bank. So that's why today we're going to talk, we have a couple of historic buildings, but we're going to talk about a lot of new stuff that's been going on over the last 30 years. So it's not, while it's history, it's not the kind of history maybe you expected to come and see. But the real exciting part of today is we're going to, for the first time, we're going to get to go into this Raleigh Motors Mercedes-Benz dealer. And that's the treat. So we're going to start here, and Tom, we'll talk about the building briefly. Just looking at it is the beauty of coming here and seeing this, because this little Gothic cottage that Bryant had built in 1862. It's a summer cottage and a mill building, and the mill building guts are in the bottom, but we'll talk about that when we get down there. Let's just quickly walk through the garden, because I love these gardens here. It's such a romantic notion, this whole house, and part of that architecturally are all of these little outbuildings. You know, there's a little tool shed there that was recently restored. You'll see this little boathouse that I remember Peggy Gary restored, but I think it's been restored again since then.
A couple of times.
Look at the bridge and the lily pond. I mean, if any of you have ever been to Monet's residence in France, it with the lily pads, I mean, it's just, and everything, every bit is just as nice, if not better. And then there's also the greenhouse.
Oh yes, we forgot about that.
Right?
Yep. Outside of this structure, all the woodwork and the brickwork, and then we did the interior and put up the wheel.
Is this spring fed?
Yes, it's all spring fed, no streams coming into it. So that's why it's clear as opposed to murky.
Just to note here, there's two things that we're going to talk about when we get into the village. One is the Roslyn Viaduct. You see the cars traversing it now. This is a good vantage point to see it. We're going to talk about that because that's a new bridge. And one of these large-scale buildings I was talking about was the building right to the left, the big one, which is originally was built by this fellow, Michael Daly. It was called the Forest City Daly, turned into I guess it was sold. It's now called the Atrium. It's a very high-end assisted living facility designed by a famous architect, Robert A.M. Stern. And we have more than one building here designed by famous architects.
So this is a Gothic revival. You'll see a lot of elements from Gothic cathedrals, which was kind of the romantic poetry and literature and art, and everything was going back to an earlier time before the Industrial Revolution. You see there's pointed arches and just the Victorian love for ornamentation. You can see on the barge board on the gable there, the wood that's been restored is a different color. So a good deal of the wood had to be restored. It was chewed up by insects and birds and you name it. That was done by Roslyn Landmarks. The chimney, all the brickwork, Gary Trust funding. So let's see. I think what we really want to do is turn on the mill. It goes under the path and into this box. That is a kind of a buffer. And then it'll go down the sluice and you'll hear it sloshing away. Once I open this up. Ooh, up here.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. So it fills the buckets, and the buckets, gravity is what does it. All those buckets fill up. When they reach the bottom, they spill out their contents. Away we go. The upstairs was the summer cottage. Downstairs was a workshop. Follow me to the lower entrance of the mill where the workshop is. The other side is all brick. That's where the wheel is. That window and all these arch boards, brickwork, door, everything is very Victorian, very decorative, elaborate. There's nothing survives, as far as we know, that it's a dual purpose like this. No. Anybody want to take the inside? Good. These are originals. You can see how much restoration work, how many things and holes and things they got for years. Actually, the reason they survived is because they took them down and they covered this up with some metal. Because there's so much trouble with people, many, many years before the county. Whooped. Come in. Watch your step. Step two. So you have the machinery here. There's a new machine, restored machinery is right here. These things all up in the ceiling, or it's the front of these belts. They're powered by that pulley. Then you can see the belt is lying there. That's a new belt. That'll turn this whole shaft along the wall. And these pulleys will go up to that one and across the room. There'll be machines all over the place. And over here we have a grain grinder. That's probably for corn. And this one's a sharpening wheel. This thing is really interesting. After the wooden wheel was built in the 60s, it probably lasted about 20 years. And then it had to be replaced. So it was replaced with a turbine, which was a technology that came in. It had been around, but it was pretty much the way to go. You were doing hydropower, and it still is. So the water is forced in, it's fed into these rusty old pipes on the ground there. They're all like twisted, wrapped and riveted. That's how they had to make pipes back then. So this was out in the mud and had been there for 100 years. Once they got electricity around the turn of the century, this was Yeah, they just left it.
So this was in lieu of the wheel. So you see that the wheel left. That was about 1865, I think.
The wheel was in 62.
62, but then shortly thereafter,
85.
85, the wheel came off, and then this gets hooked up to the sluiceway.
Well, it comes through a pipe.
Through the pipe.
A pipe.
Exactly, would have to be.
The full blast. It's much more efficient, like 90% efficient. That one's maybe 40, 50, 60%. Most of the energy just splashes away.
Yeah.
And
so this was an alternative to the wheel, and it just turned a turbine and did identically the same thing.
Ran this whole thing.
So you can see this wheel's turning. It's all belt driven. And I always like to say, when you come and see these things, I mean, we're looking at old things now, and you're saying, "Oh God, look at all that old stuff." This was the high technology, right? This was somebody's cell phone down here. All right, this is the latest and greatest stuff of its time. And could you imagine how much energy and time goes into this? Like Tom was saying, you know, you have to switch these belts and get a different speed, like a bicycle. You know, things moved a lot slower then, not like today.